Yeah, hello everyone. Sam here, another book review or recommended reading video for you. Um, there are entire libraries full of books on the Greco-Roman pantheon, religion, culture, and I'm not going to try to be comprehensive, but what I am going to do is try to introduce you to a few books that you really should read if you're interested in the Greeks and their culture and religion. I'm going to start with a couple of foundation documents. Homer, the Odyssey. This is a recent translation by Emily Wilson, 2018, published by Norton. Um, the Odyssey is often said to be the first novel in Europe. It's the story of a a wily, intelligent, and tricky guy called Odysseus, who had been one of the great heroes of the Trojan War, and his adventures coming home after the war. It took him many years to come home, and he had a number of adventures on the way, including calling up the spirits of the dead, being marooned on a desert island ruled by a witch, speaking to goddesses and gods, fighting battles. Um, it's a it's really an entertaining story, as well as being one of the foundations. Many of the stories in here you will be familiar with simply because they're part of the European um, foundation stories. So yes, you should read Homer. The other Homeric book, the Iliad. This is a wonderful translation by Robert Fagles. It's an older translation, 1990, I believe, and uh, it is the great poem of war. It is uh, beautiful and brutal and passionate. It follows principally the great hero Achilles, who is a killing machine. He's an extraordinarily strong, powerful, ruthless fighter. He so it talks about his battles. It talks about battles of various other Greek heroes. It describes the interventions of various goddesses and gods onto the battlefield. Um, we see what happens inside Troy as well as what happens in the Greek encampment besieging the city, um, and it's a foundation. Um, if you want to know or understand anything about heroic age Greek culture or the foundation stories of that of the Greeks, you have to read Homer. And this translation, uh, a beautiful, brilliant translation. Coming on along a little later, um, for I guess ritual inspiration, the Homeric Hymns. This translation by Charles Boer is fairly old, 1970. Um, some of the stories that we are the most familiar with from Greek culture come from this. The hymn to Demeter, for example, is the foundation uh, story of Persephone being kidnapped to the underworld, and her mother Demeter, the goddess of grain, um, wandering the world trying to get her back. Um, There are also stories of the god Ares, hymns to Hermes, the trickster god, to Apollo and Athena. Just it's a wonderful source book. When you're doing ritual, my grasp of ancient Greek is zero, but when I'm doing a ritual to one of the Greek goddesses and gods, I find that calling upon older source material like this, gives it a resonance and impact that is difficult to quantify, but is absolutely transformative. Another set of ancient documents, less ancient than that, the Orphic Hymns, translated by Apostolos Athanassakis. This is a 1977 translation. He also provides the Greek originals, which does me no good. But the Orphic mysteries were a group of mystery cults that were centered on a later Roman Empire reinterpretation of the Greek gods, a form of a mystery cult that saw them as not as individuals, but as philosophical or as archetypes. This is a set of invocations to different goddesses and gods that was used in ritual. It also gives like what incense they liked and stuff like that. Again, it's very useful for when you're composing a ritual. It's very helpful to have this kind of ancient material from roughly 2nd to 4th century CE to draw upon. For a more, there you go, Goddesses in Myth and Cultural Memory, Emilie Kutash, published by Bloomsbury in 2021. Emilie Kutash, this is a historian, a very good history of the development of ideas of the goddesses from ancient Greece to the present. Her strongest stuff is when she's dealing with the Neoplatonists in the first few centuries CE, and the way that many ideas that are still current around images of goddesses, their characteristics, the triple goddess, the transformation of Hecate from a minor Greek goddess to being the Magna Mater and triple goddess over everything. All of these kinds of historical transformations. She deals with them very well. It's fairly thick and chewy. It's academic. It's an academic text. It's very worth reading for the theology and for a deeper understanding of ideas that we are taking from antiquity. Yeah. Okay, an excellent theology that I have recommended in a previous video, In Praise of Polytheism by Maurizio Bettini. Originally 2014, translated and published in 2023 by University of California Press. Of a wonderful comparison of the theologies and ideas of the monotheists, particularly the Catholic Church, and Roman polytheism. He gives a very clear and lovely theology of polytheism. How it is that the gods of polytheism are not, for example, jealous gods. We're interested in finding any gods that we can, and worshiping them in the way that they like to be worshipped. We like to incorporate and include them into our pantheons, rather than excluding them and drawing these hard and fast boundaries around our traditions and our practices. It's and The ideas of how do you have a genuinely tolerant society. Well, monotheism by its nature is not tolerant. There is one true way. It happens, by the way, that whoever is promulgating that true way knows exactly what it is. And yeah, so how do we bring a polytheistic sensibility into modern multilingual, multi-ethnic, multi-religious societies? It's a very interesting, useful book. Okay. Now, this one, uh, Magic, Witchcraft, and Ghosts in the Greek and Roman Worlds, a source book by Daniel Ogden, published by Oxford University Press, this edition 2009. He pulls together a large number of documents, spells, stories, folklore, all sorts of things, oracles, and traditions, and cites them all. So there's literally hundreds of magical fragments here, all properly cited, ranging across the spectrum of folk magic, high magic, and religious offerings, and all of that stuff, with a very substantial bibliography to follow up on all of this. If you're interested in practical magic, in like doing magic the way that the ancients did it, understanding how their worldview worked in practice, this is a very useful book. In particular, because of the substantial amount of bibliography and the proper citations of where he got all of this stuff. And yeah, good book, good to have. Let's see. Here's another work of analysis. This is the Roberto Calasso's book, The Marriage of Cadmus and Harmony, from 1993, Alfred Knopf Publishers. Calasso takes and draws a large story from the mythologies of the Greeks, mostly the Greeks, talking about issues like how is it that the gods and humans became separate, what are the relationships that used to exist and that currently exist between gods and humans, what are the great stories and how do they all fit together, and he sees several, but one continuing thread is that it's family history. The myths of ancient Greece generally concern members of the same noble families and their dealings with the gods and their relationships with them. It's beautifully written. It's very thoughtful. It's the only flaw is that it doesn't have an index. But yeah, it's a marvelous piece of work. I really think by reading it you will understand better how myths and tales fit together. How you can make a coherent story and a coherent worldview out of these things. And last but not least, Ginette Paris. Ginette Paris, here you go. Pagan Meditations, Aphrodite, Estia, and Artemis. published in 1986. It's translated out of French. It's very important when we deal with goddesses and gods that we recognize that they are active in and through our lives. That when we do things that they like, for example, if you are someone who makes something, you are doing the kind of thing that Hephaestus does. If you are loving, you are doing some of the things that Aphrodite does. If you are in your kitchen, really enjoying making food for friends or your family, that is what Hestia does. And you embody the goddesses and gods when you are doing the things that they particularly enjoy doing, that they are part of. And so by recognizing that, she produced this book with 3 fairly lengthy and fascinating discussions of how to embody Aphrodite or Hestia or Artemis. What is the type of life that you lead if you are these goddesses? And it's beautifully written. It's fascinating. It's very there are layers. It's not just Aphrodite in her nightie, all very cute and flighty. It's Aphrodite, the goddess who fought in the Trojan War. It's Aphrodite, the goddess of the terror of love and loss. It's Aphrodite who is the embodiment of all of the complexities around sexuality and love. It's a fascinating and complex, and all of these 3, she develops them beautifully. I'm very, very pleased with this book. Another book by her, Pagan Grace, which deals with Dionysus, Hermes, and goddess memory in daily life, is equally brilliant, 1990. What do we think of when we think of Dionysus, the god of ecstasy, drunkenness, foolishness? But he's also a god who liberates us from our little our boundaries. He assists us in breaking free of boundaries. Hermes, of course, is the god of eloquence. The god of thieves and lawyers. A complex and interesting character, and we can embody these various characteristics in our lives and become the representatives of these gods. So that's my quick little run through today. I think the next couple of things I'm going to try to do is record. There's a series of lectures that I delivered as part of teaching a course in Wiccan theology, and I think it's be a good idea to put those up. So, talk to you soon. Blessed be.